Initiative's application. And the meeting is being recorded, which is just what we want, so that anyone who couldn't make it today can review it at a later date, and so that you can go back and refer to it if you need to brush up on anything. But yeah, we're going to jump right into it. So let me start sharing my screen. Nope. Okay. So we have the 2026 application review. So yeah, this is a continued partnership between the Texas Master Naturalist Program and HEB. Before we get into that, just want to go over some general advice as with all webinars. So if you're experiencing any issues, please go to the link that pertains to Team and Tuesdays. Chat function is open for on-topic discussion and any questions you might have. Please be professional and respectful with all questions in the chat room. This webinar is going to run about an hour. You can log that for advanced training. And like Mary Pearl said, the recording will be posted, if not today, in the morning, so you can refer back to that. Getting right into it. So today we're going to talk about the Pollinators for Texas initiative. We're going to talk specifically about the 2026-2027 project timeline, get into some project considerations and resources that are available to you, and then we'll actually go and do a quick review of the application itself, the online web application, and then we've left time at the end so that you guys can ask any questions you have. So let's get right into that. So the Pollinators for Texas initiative, we're entering our third year of this initiative. Native pollinator conservation. The initiative aims to enhance native pollinator conservation through chapter-led projects that increase habitat coverage and pollinator awareness across the state. This is a partnership with HEB, who have continued their support, generously contributing $80,000 this year, which will allow us to distribute that to chapters with project awards up to $4,000. And kind of our vision for this year, continuing from last year, we hope to expand the reach of the initiative's impact through providing support for additional projects across the state with applicable pollinator projects. And as mentioned, these can span from habitat development and restoration to educational outreach. So looking at the timeline, so for 2024, we had notification of awards in early mid-January. The projects were implemented from February to November of 2025. We had a mid-year report due in July, and project completion deadline was beginning of November, and we had the final report done beginning of December. For 2025, per feedback from Master Naturalists, we adjusted the timeline, had applications open in April and close on June 1st. This was to better align with planting schedules in the fall and spring. And yeah, had the award notification in August. Projects were implemented between September and July. We had a mid-year report due at the end of January, and all measurable project impacts were due by July 6th. And looking forward to 2026, it's going to be very similar. So applications open this month on the 1st, and they're going to close June 1st at midnight. Projects will be awarded early August if they've received a project award. Sorry, will be notified if they've received that. And similarly, from September of 2026 to July of 2027 is when all work with those funds will be happening. We are going to have a mid-year check-in in January, and this is going to look a bit different than it was last year. Project completion deadline is still going to be early July, and we ask that final reporting is completed by July 30th of 2027. So these are all kind of the way things will flow if your chapter is awarded, but getting more into the application itself and what these projects entail. Yeah, applications must be received online. All projects submitted must first be approved by the chapter board. This is very important. I guess as a precursor to any applications, make sure that check box is accounted for. So chapters may submit multiple projects. However, it is possible that only one might be awarded to each chapter, so there's no guarantee. Project sites must be located on publicly accessible property. This is to be aligned with some of HEB's goals to kind of get more of that public outreach component. And priority will be given to pollinator habitat projects. However, educational initiatives are also being considered. Similarly, project priority will be given to projects proposing large scale impact. And because of this, we encourage chapters to consider working with neighboring Texas Master Naturalist chapters to, have a larger scale of impact, and also with as many partner agencies, organizations, sources of funding, just anything you can do to kind of take this project award and make that impact scale up is going to be very appealing for HEB. Priority will be given to projects engaging with and involving local communities. One thing to note is that Pollinators for Texas funds cannot support funding for advertising, individuals, transportation, political events, or any sort of fundraising. Um, all applicants must provide a long-term maintenance and care plan. Selected projects must incorporate a marketing plan, and all selected projects must fill out a mid-year and final report. Like I mentioned, the mid-year report is going to be a bit different, and that's a bit more of an informal check-in. But the final report that will require in July is where we need that full information. For chapters that have previously been awarded Pollinators for Texas awards, they must either A, submit a new phase of their previously awarded project, or B, an entirely separate project from their previously awarded project. So, just something to note if any of your chapters fall in that category. And then, yeah, we've prepared some resources to help chapters in crafting their applications. So, first off, we have templates that were created and provided to you guys for creating a draft budget for your project, and also a species list of pollinators that you plan to target. These have been provided and can all be accessed in the resources and FAQ section of our website. Um, we have also created a PDF checklist of all of the necessary components for the application to help you keep track of everything. And finally, as mentioned, applications are done online via the web form on the Pollinators for Texas webpage. However, progress that you put in that form will not be saved. So it's for this reason that we encourage you to download the full Word document version of the application so you can work on it separate, get all of the info in there, have that saved, and then copy that into the web form. So, yeah, and one thing to note is that this online application is the only way that it will be received. Please do not email the Word document to the Pollinators for Texas account. To be eligible for consideration, it needs to come through the online portal. And yeah, all of these aforementioned resources are accessible in the resources and FAQ section of the Pollinators for Texas webpage. And if you have any other questions, please do not hesitate to email myself at tmnpollinatorsfortexas@ag.tamu.edu. Yeah, and an additional resource we're going to be providing, a bit more general, but still very helpful. There will be a grant writing webinar for the May TMN Tuesday. This is scheduled at 11:30 a.m. on May 12th. And this is going to be going over more general advice and tips from experts on how to craft a strong application package for grants. And we specifically offer you to take advantage of this in pulling together your Pollinators for Texas application. There's going to be some very good speakers that I think will provide maybe some deeper insights than I can myself. So please do not let their time be in vain. And yeah, here's the QR code if you want to register for that. And like I said, that will be for the May TMN Tuesday. But yeah, getting right into the application itself. So as I mentioned, this is accessible on the main Pollinators for Texas webpage. If you press the application button, it will take you down to it. I'm going to go ahead and do that here. If I can, here. Give me 1 second, y'all. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for 1 second.
Well, Krishan's switching over between his two different screens. I wanted to reiterate that the website is really the kitchen sink with those resources, those templates, the FAQ documents, extra templates that Krishan has created since the last year. So really an opportunity for y'all to really engage with all of those resources. That same website is where we'll be sharing today's slides and the recording as well.
Thank you, Mary Pearl. And yes, I have the website, which you should now be able to see. So yeah, it's the main webpage for the initiative on the state website. And if you see here, there's a button 2026 application. Press it, it will take you down here. So this is the full application, which needs all sections filled out and submitted in order to be eligible for review. So starting off, it's more basic info, your chapter name. We have a drop-down menu, mailing address, applicant contact name, I guess one per chapter, and email, and then moving into the project details. So we ask that you provide a name for your project. Keep in mind that if awarded, this name will be used for marketing purposes. So whatever you would want to be visible and memorable, um, maybe having it be something catchy is not never hurts. And then we have an important question here. As mentioned, all projects must be reviewed and approved by the chapter board. So um, it is important that this is taken care of and noted here. And then we have a drop down to select project type as either education or habitat. It's important that you choose the correct one of these because there is a series of corresponding questions for each. Um, and then project location. So if possible, please provide the full address for the project location or locations. One thing to note is that it is okay to have multiple project sites, just ensuring that you give us as much info and specific info on that as possible. Now for the project overview. This is arguably one of the more important pieces of the application because this summary is what will be used in all future press releases. For that sake, we're asking that you keep it brief, no more than 600 characters. But yeah, summarizing the project, how it aligns with the initiative's goals, and any other info that you think kind of gives the best representation of your purpose is where this is where that would go. And then we have a section for you to list project goals, what the purpose is, what goals are expected to come from this. We have a bit more space here. With these goals, one thing I want to just suggest is finding ways to have this align with the mission of the Pollinators for Texas initiative, which is the next question. How do these goals align with the overall goal of the initiative? We have here the quote mission statement. So this is going to be an important piece just overall in crafting your application, trying to show not just why it's a good project, but why it's a good project for HEB to invest in for the purpose of the initiative. And there's ways of doing that. One way is project partners. As mentioned, more partnerships kind of leads to increased capability, capacity, and also lower risk, which is going to be, a very appealing kind of metric there. So yeah, listing all project partnerships and trying to think of new project partnerships that can be created. Project timeline. Please provide an approximate timeline of important dates, milestones. And yeah, this can be as in depth as you want it, but more in depth the better. Anticipated challenges. So this is another important component. Kind of having contingency plans in place. Identifying potential challenges and showing that you've considered them and have um, approaches at addressing them if anything arises.
I
So
might jump in here just
is
a little bit, Krishan. That is a new question on this year's application, the anticipated challenges. As we were developing this relationship with HEB over the last several years, this is something that we wanted to make sure that we were addressing upfront with them based off of some conversations that we've had with them as they're looking at ways that these projects are being implemented across the state. And so really wanting to give them that assurance that this is a well thought through project with all of these kind of contingency factors in there is a great way to assure those concerns that they may have ahead of time.
Thank you. Yeah, like Mary Pearl is saying, I guess one way to kind of think about this relationship as you're going through the application process is just considering, what an organization like HEB, what they might want to see. And it is an investment, like we've said. So kind of showing that cost return, showing that low risk, and showing that big impact. These are all just only going to be beneficial to your project's ranking. So I have education selected up here in project type. So we're going to go through those questions. For education projects only, who will benefit from this project? Who is your target audience? How will they benefit? And yeah, just trying to keep in mind ways that this could be expanded is a good approach. Please list native pollinators that this educational initiative will highlight. Describe the format of the educational component: workshops, classroom lessons, signage, community events. If you currently have drafts, please attach at the end of the application. This kind of draft format question, I do think, is a very great opportunity if you do have any existing curriculum or kind of rough plans of doing that. The more you can flesh that out beforehand, the better. I'm sure our judges would really appreciate kind of having actual samples and references. So next question is how you will involve local participants and promote awareness. What are the anticipated impacts on knowledge, behavior, or local ecosystems? How will you measure success? This is a pretty big one with educational initiatives that might be, a bit less concrete than with habitat, where you can just say like number of plants, square footage, number of pollinators observed. Um, we recommend that you kind of find ways to bake that reporting into your application, going into it with how you plan the project, just because you know having measurable impacts is something that HEB is kind of directly looking for. So how you can work that in, and also how will you ensure this project will remain beneficial over time? Is this a long-term initiative? What long-lasting impacts could this initiative have on participants? That's kind of the level that you should be approaching it with. I guess not to say it's not an option for it to not kind of be long-term, but its impact should be lasting. Going back up and moving into habitat specific questions. Yeah, so we have first off site description, provide detailed location information, include total area, whether land is publicly accessible, current site conditions. One thing to note: land needs to be publicly accessible. What native pollinator species will this project support? Which native plants will be included to support these pollinators? And we have templates provided for that, listing out habitat components, what specific elements will be included to create a cohesive and functional pollinator habitat. And yeah, make sure you consider aspects beyond just plants. How will you involve local participants and or promote awareness? This applies to both education and habitat initiatives, and the reason why is because this kind of local engagement, community impact aspect is very important for the initiative's mission. So um, I guess just note that habitat projects, it is just as important to have that outreach component as it is to create that habitat. Um, Similarly, kind of looking at that long-term planning, who will be responsible for upkeep and maintenance, how will plant health and pollinator activity be monitored, describe how the habitat will benefit pollinators and contribute to biodiversity. Um, yeah, so just like Mary Pearl said, the more kind of forethought that you can show that you put into the project, that's only going to help your application's ranking. Now moving into questions that apply to both education and habitat, budget and funding. So how much funding are you requesting? It is up to $4,000 that projects can be awarded, but please note that you do not need to apply for all 4,000 if you have a more specific gap in budget, say with an existing project, and you just want to apply for that, you're certainly welcome to. Disregarding the funding limit. So this next question kind of touches on that. What is the total budget required for funding this project? I guess one thing that I've seen just in looking through previous year's applications is that a good majority of the projects already kind of had other sources of funding or a budget larger than just the 4,000. Like I mentioned, that kind of scale of impact is something that we're looking for. So yeah, and then if full funding is not awarded, how will this impact the project? That kind of helps to show, why it's important, and also that you have planned around, different outcomes, and that the project is kind of resilient beyond just a single figure. And then we have a area for you to upload a project budget, and as mentioned, we have a template for that. And now moving into recognition and documentation. So, what outreach methods will be used to promote this project as part of the Pollinators for Texas initiative? This can include social media, press releases, signage, just anything that's gonna take those impacts and let them be something that's building publicity and that's building awareness. Social media presence. Please provide links to relevant social media pages that will be posting project related material. This can include any socials, and then also if you have any blogs or newsletters where that would be captured, please include that there. We have an open-ended section for any other information, and you're encouraged to use it if there's anything you want to put there. And then we have a series of file upload options for additional information, project photos, project plan, species list, budget, project maintenance plan. So yeah, the more resources you can collect, the better. And yeah, we did kind of implement different character limits this year around, just because we have a lot of projects, growing number of projects that we've been receiving as the years have gone on, and want to be conscious of kind of the limited time of our judges. So yeah, whatever you can do to kind of paint a picture under these character limits and within the application is going to be giving you better chances. So I'm going to stop sharing and move back to the slides now. Okay. So yeah, thank you everybody for bearing with me. I hope that was helpful, but want to give the majority of the time we have here today for questions and answers, and just some FAQs we've received in years past. So, well, first off, I have some tips. So these are traits across both education and habitat projects from the year to the 2025-2026 project awards. Um, these are some pieces of advice I have just from looking at the highest ranked applications. So explicitly frame your proposal to show alignment with initiative goals. Project design is directly structured to maximize measurable outcomes. And I have measurable in bold because, as mentioned, you know, getting the work done is one part of it, but being able to show that you're getting the work done and show the value in that work that you're doing is just as important. And kind of especially for the relationship we have with HEB, that is a important aspect for them. So kind of going into your project with that mindset is, I think, just a very helpful kind of guiding principle. Utilize quantifiable metrics. This could be square foot of habitat created, volunteer hours planned, species targeted, and anticipated visitor count. Um, Anything to kind of make it measurable. Partnerships are key. High ranked applications emphasize collaboration with external organizations. These could be master gardener programs, local governments, landowners, nonprofits, schools, anybody that provides time, resources, and an expanded reach is going to be very appealing. Yeah, and avoiding vagueness. This was the most common aspect of previous applications I saw that received lower rankings. Um, you want to make sure you're being detailed, measurable, and specifically aligning to the goals and structure of your proposal. And that's going to give your project a better chance. Um, for some habitat specific tips, signal project feasibility, show risk is calculated. All the top applicants had secured land access, had previously secured land access, had existing infrastructure, highlighted clear long-term milestones. So yeah, if your chapter has any existing projects or relationships with local public land management agencies, utilizing those only kind of shows that there's less of a risk in going on with that phase of the project. And some had previously executed phases or existing pollinator project sites. So, um, yeah, maintenance is an intentional step, not an afterthought. Having pre scheduled, specifically assigned monitoring systems included. Um, Community engagement is embedded, equally as important is as the creation and restoration of habitat, emphasizing community engagement in both the implementation and public outreach opportunities. Yeah, this component is not secondary, and this can be achieved through interpretive signage, planned events, tours, festivals, and involvement of local schools are all ways you could bolster this engagement. And yeah, having ecologically informed habitat design, this being multifunctional and utilizing features beyond plants, water sources, nesting structures, shelter, overwintering habitat are all um, ways you could further utilize that project site and maximize habitat created. Moving into some education specific tips, building learning around hands-on participation. All of the top applicants who have received educational awards have had that kind of aspect, hands-on active learning, not just conveying that information. And this could include many things, workshops with tangible projects. We've had some campaigns with like active pledges, kind of calls to action, community events that directly involve the public. And one thing to consider for habitat projects as well is, you know, can you bring in the public to maybe help just in the implementation of that project? Doing community work days, tours, anything to kind of get people there and get them actually on the ground. Show strong community integration, pre-existing partnerships, utilizing variety of partnerships, creating partnerships helps yield a wider impact. And one thing I would say in particular is to consider how different audiences can be targeted at once. I know with some examples I've seen, um, projects where it's tied, directly to a school. So you have students that are going to be the ones benefiting from that, but then you have local Boy Scout chapter that gets to come in and use that. Um, you know, Letting other organizations, Master Gardener, Native Plant Society, as many different organizations as you can kind of bring in and let be impacted by that. And yeah, project design should lead to measurable impacts. Reporting is a crucial aspect, showing what metrics will be used to track progress, and that a system for capturing this has been thought of and will be implemented. And yeah, not just educational impacts, also ecological impacts stemming from that can be highlighted. So yeah, moving into some brief frequently asked questions. Do we have to provide a tax ID? So we require all applicants to submit a W-9, and as part of that, uh, tax information is included. If your chapter has a tax identification number or an EIN, TIN, EIN, that can also be included, but just note that having kind of the W-9 submitted and accurate is going to be kind of taking care of that component. And if you have any further questions, talking to your chapter board would be the best approach there. What types of project are eligible for funding? So I would hope that kind of this webinar so far has shown some examples of the types of goals the initiative has at large. But my biggest piece of advice for chapters who are maybe uncertain on if they have any projects that can kind of fit within this or might be trying to think of examples of that. One, if you're unsure, please reach out and ask. I've had some folks reach out to me already, and that's going to be the best way to kind of get a more definite green light, or if what we think just based on previous cycles the judges might be more receptive to. So please don't hesitate to use that. But I would say the greatest resource that you have is the fact that we have two previous grant cycles. With 33 projects now that have been awarded. So you're more than free to go on the Pollinators for Texas webpage. You can look through all of the projects, look at their descriptions, go to the social media for those projects, kind of see how they've been running it. Um, yeah, I would say best kind of reference for what types of projects are eligible is to look at the projects that have been eligible in years past. So yeah, please do not hesitate to use that. Can we submit multiple applications? As mentioned, chapters are more than welcome to submit more than one application. It's not guaranteed that more than one application will, sorry, more than one project awards will be granted. And we do specifically ask if you could avoid submitting any more than two project applications, that would be great. I say that both for the sake of our judges, but also consolidating those ideas and resources, I feel would almost certainly be more beneficial to your application, to making a stronger application than having multiple applications. So yeah, if you're trying to decide between two projects, maybe seeing how that could be combined is definitely not a bad approach. If awarded, how and when will funds be received? So, as mentioned, project award notification will be happening in August of this year, so August 2026, hopefully early August. And from that point, it is just a matter of how long it takes for the business office on our end to have those funds reach your, um, I guess, business office. In years past, we've seen that kind of take between 2 to 4 weeks. But we have worked diligently to kind of have that be as streamlined as we can have it so that you guys have as much time to work and, put those funds to use. So, yeah, we'll have all of the paperwork pre-filled so that, you know, if you're approved, the second you are, we just submit that straight to them. And then, it's just how long it takes to process. Um, can out of region chapters apply? So by out of region, this refers to chapters that might not have an HEB in their service area. And this is especially, I know, the case for some of the West Texas chapters. Yes, out of region chapters can apply. This is something we've talked with HEB about. And, you know, pollinators pollinator conservation in Texas does not just benefit the people that live directly there. It benefits all Texans. It benefits everyone who eats food, and um, there are chapters not within the service area that, could still be having big impacts in that way. And I guess one thing I would say, advice for chapters that might fall in that category is looking from an ecological standpoint if you can kind of justify why that would be beneficial, beyond your local region. I know that like there's a lot of flyways or kind of different avenues where a local project could have those wide-ranging effects. So yeah, please do not hesitate to apply. And yeah, we're gonna open it up now for questions. But before we do that, I have a question for you guys. I know that we have raise hand and reaction features. So yeah, it is mid-April. Applications are going to be closing on June 1st. And I was wondering if it would be of interest to anybody if I were to do some sort of an office hours style meeting where people could come in kind of and open forum, ask questions, have me review any application related matters. If this is something of interest to you, if you could please put a reaction in chat, just so we can kind of gauge interest for that. Um, yeah, and we could do more than one of these, but definitely I'm thinking at least one, and trying to do that probably sometime in May, maybe latter half of May, so that you guys can all go and work through the applications and I guess ask questions once you have them. But I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up, so it seems like
I
there
think you've
might.
got your answer there, Krishan.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, awesome.
Great idea.
Cool. Yeah. My apologies. I know that sometimes with more general advice, it might be difficult to kind of have your specific questions answered. But yeah, that's why we have, the next upwards of 20 minutes to work through that. And then, like I said, based on y'all's interests, I think that we will be hosting another opportunity in the future. And yeah, thank you all once again for your time. Um,
So he's got, like he said, he's got another 20 minutes or so. So if you guys want to type a question in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand with the reactions or unmute and ask a question, Krishan's here to help answer and facilitate any of those questions that he can answer today. I guess while we're waiting for some questions to come in, I have another question for the audience here today. Now that we're in year 3 here, I'd love to see or hear of any chapter that is considering applying for the very first time, has not been awarded in the past 2 years, and is looking at entering into the Pollinators for Texas application period for the first time this cycle.
Lots of people still processing.
well, if there are any of y'all in that camp on the call, um, okay, here we go. We have a question. Patricia asked that there are both education and habitat projects. How do the two applications differ? So yeah, as we saw on the site here, let me share my screen again. I have it open. So the applications are exactly the same, except for that when you come here and select project type, if you select habitat, you're going to receive the following, I think it's 6 questions. And yeah, this is site description, pollinator species list, habitat components, how you will involve local participants, how you will ensure it remains beneficial and maintained over time, and describe how the habitat will benefit pollinators and contribute to biodiversity. And we see if we go back up here, so that's for a habitat project. And then if we go to the education projects and scroll back down, we see that it's changed to education project only, and it's who will benefit from this project. Again, listing the native pollinators that will be highlighted, describing the format of the educational component. Um, Same as the other, how will you involve local participants? What are the anticipated impacts on knowledge, behavior, local ecosystems? How you'll measure success, and how you'll ensure that the project remains beneficial over time. So yeah, that's how they differ. Besides that, all other questions are the same.
You've got some more questions in the chat here. Krishan, you have a question about advertising. It says money cannot be used for advertising. Can you clarify, please, if we want to submit an article to our local newspaper and they charge, is that considered advertisement or outreach?
That is a very good question, and yeah, I'm gonna make sure with Mirror Pearl that I give the right
Yeah,
answer.
in my
I
mind,
believe.
that becomes, in my mind, and of course, we'd want to make sure that we get clarification from HEB because that's a new question that we haven't been
Yeah, let me write
asked
this down.
before. But in my mind, that would be an educational proponent of the garden. You would, if the article is of educational nature in a way that it is sharing content about the pollinator habitat that you are developing. Um, Again, I would consider that education materials, not advertisement. But we will certainly make sure that we get that question answered by HEB, and then Christian will have that added to the FAQ page on our website as well.
Thank you for asking that, Patricia. Like Mirror Pearl said, it's only adds on to the resources that we have, the more kind of uncertainties that you guys have. I'm gonna
Yeah, and I
keep.
think the questions get easier from here. Patricia certainly started us off with some hard questions today. But Houston asks, our pollinator garden committee wants to host a community-wide event at our local botanical gardens. This would focus mostly on hands-on education workshops throughout the day. Would this idea qualify for the grant?
Yeah, no, I mean that's definitely the sort of initiative that could qualify for the grant. I think what's really going to kind of push that over the edge is if you can show, I guess, one, why you need that funding, and then
I think the take home message of what
yeah,
action comes out of that educational programming that applies directly into habitat management or development by those attendees would be a great addition to an application like that. That call to action from those educational avenues that creates or generates habitat. I think that's the piece that HEB would really thrive on with a project similar to that.
And the question that would really need to be answered there is why the cost for such an event? Like detail that out.
yeah, and kind of piggybacking off of what both Mary Pearl and Michelle said, I think there's a difference between we're hosting an event and we need money to host that event, and we're creating a program that's going to exist at that botanical garden for years to come, and might have that ability to exist without us, or we're creating a team that are going to routinely go and provide workshops on a monthly basis or something of that effect. So just kind of taking that scale. And I think one thing that we haven't seen as much that I do think has a lot of potential is like Mary Pearl said, with that kind of call to action. I think pledge campaigns or anything where you're kind of directly showing that because of this initiative, there's going to be a change at a habitat level, or in management, can be also very appealing. I'm going to go down to the next question. Voted to go after a grant for Kellis Turner Park. Our second application. My query is that demonstration garden would add more pollinator plants, but is located 30 feet from an elementary school. Habitat with education bonus. Yeah, that sounds like it definitely could be. And I think you know, beyond the proximity, working in like actual formal ways for students to get involved. Like I said, we've had chapters that are directly tied to schools where it's a park with, or sorry, a garden within a school, but they have volunteers that do regular programming, regular tours, and open that up to other groups. So I think that sounds like it could have potential. Can grants be used inside our local state
Well,
park?
hold on one second, Krishan. Back on that question, it sounds like the chapter is also trying to decide, do we submit it in the education category or do we submit it into the habitat category? And at that time, your chapter would really need to make a determination of where it fits the best, but also cover, like if you choose to, if it's that it is a habitat project and there's these tangential education pieces to it, I would still detail that out in your application wherever it landed, and vice versa. If it was an education project with additional habitat, like just be as thorough and provide as much information as you can in your application.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that, and this is maybe going to make it a bit more confusing, but in the past we have had educational initiatives that do include an actual project site with kind of a habitat component. So I guess it's really just more where that kind of goal between the two types of project aligns. And I think if there's any other chapters that are kind of wondering how to classify it, I would suggest going through and trying to fill out that application. And if it's difficult to frame it within one of the set of questions or the other, that might help. And if not, please, that is a great example of something that would be wise to reach out about, just to kind of have that fully clarified. Going
So
back to
the next question that I see here is from Phyllis. She
yes, ma'am.
asks, can the grants be used inside our local state park?
Yeah, they certainly can. I guess the important operative piece there is going to be, do you have permission to use the grant inside of that local state park? But as long as you have pre-approved access, and please do make sure that you have pre-approved access. There's been cases where that part was kind of up in the air, and it's difficult to have a habitat project when the project site kind of falls out under you. So please, if you're approved to do that, state parks are a very, very good option. And that's an example of how you could really highlight that visitation, especially if it's a more visited park, to kind of show that it's potentially accessed by like 80,000 people a year, depending on where it's at. um
Here's the next question for you from Randolph. He asks, are awards granted as applications are received and reviewed, or only after all applications have been received and reviewed? I may have missed this during your presentation.
Yeah, so the way we do the kind of application review process, we have a panel of judges. Once the application period closes, all applications will be going to them, and they're going to look at them, review them, compare them to each other. I mentioned in the project that high ranked, they do have an actual ranking system, kind of with a rubric. So there's it's very formulaic, but yeah, they go through, review all of the applications, get them kind of ranked how they think, and then we go talk with HEB, and if it all checks out, that's when y'all get the award notification. So I guess to answer your question more briefly, all projects are reviewed, and then all awards are given at the same time to those who made it. So it's kind of a one in boom boom.
Here's another application process question. Is there a way to save function on the application process whereby it is a working document before we formally submit?
Good question. The answer is no. It's for that reason that we recommend that y'all download the full Word document and work there so that all of your progress is saved. In years past, the plugin we use on the website um, has had a save option, but that can be kind of spotty, and it's
It
I
was not
assure you,
reliable.
yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
it was
Yeah,
not reliable, and it certainly threw a few chapters into the loop, which is why we started the Word document system. And so filling out your application on the Word document and then just running copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste into the form is the best functionality.
yes, ma'am. Yeah, unfortunately, not the most reliable. And I guess one thing to just keep in mind as you're filling out that Word document is that there are character limits for all of the questions. So, making sure you're going and kind of referring to that prior to writing out your whole deal.
Here's
Tom,
another question from Tom. He asks, with school permission, is a public university considered to be public accessible?
so I believe, as somebody who goes to a public university, that like pretty much all land on a public university that isn't like directly restricted or a classroom is considered public property. So, yeah, I definitely think that would be considered a publicly accessible space. I think what might come into question would be, you know, the degree of accessibility for different target audiences. So I think as long as it's being very intentionally placed there and you're trying to reach out to people there and people, outside of that, then, there's no reason why that would be an issue. Do y'all have any other thoughts on that one?
No, I think that's a great way to frame it and making sure that that the application states who the target audience is for those projects on those different types of publicly accessible lands. Okay, and I'm reading these questions off, Krishan, so that they get recorded because the chat will not be in the recording. And so another question came in. It says, is it okay to ask how many applications were submitted last year and how many were granted or were granted funds? I believe we had 17 total awarded projects last year. And I think there were only 4 to 5 in addition that were not awarded, that were applications that were not awarded out of that. So a total of about 22.
Yes, ma'am. I'm looking right now just to cross-reference that, but for Habitat, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Yeah, so we received 15 applications for Habitat projects last cycle, and we received a decent amount for education. Actually, we received 6 for education, and yeah, and we awarded 17 projects. So it's honestly not a terrible ratio there. And I guess one thing to consider, I was going to mention this earlier, but if you're a chapter who has never received project funding, um, maybe get a little bit jealous that out of all of the Texas Master Naturalist chapters, over 30 of them have yet to receive project award funding. So it's, you know, it is a relatively small ratio of overall chapters that have got funding in years past, and all chapters have been eligible. So if you've never applied, it's definitely on the table
This
that
is the year. This is the year to do it. Well, we have about 5 more minutes, and as we're wrapping up, just as a reference, again, Christian has worked really hard to make sure that that website has all of the resources, templates, FAQs, today's recording, all of those different questions that you may have, hopefully are answered already on that website, as well as his direct email address, the TMN Pollinators for Texas at ag.tamu.edu is the mailbox to use to ask your questions. Krishan is not a judge of the application, so he can stay objective and he can help to provide that guidance and that input and those resources where needed. And then that's also where he will post the office hours that he mentioned earlier as well as through the listserv as we get those final dates and times set up.
thank you, Mary Pearl. And yeah, I cannot stress enough that I really do want to be a resource for you guys as much as I can be. And if I don't know, I have my lovely team that I can bounce those questions off of. But we really do want to see, hypothetically, I wish every chapter would apply, and if you've never applied before, please don't let that daunt you. If you've applied in years past and didn't receive funding, please do actually reach out, email me. We can directly look at that and kind of maybe what happened last year and what could be different this year. So, um, as I mentioned, kind of our vision as we enter the third year of the project is, we have the same funding, but we want to expand that impact and expand that reach. And if you go onto the Pollinators for Texas webpage, we have a very neat map that's been set up to show all of the distribution of project sites. Go ahead and look at that and see kind of the way that's consolidated. And, if you see a gap there that you think your chapter could fill, we would love for you to apply to do so. And yeah, very sincerely, do not hesitate to reach out to me with any questions. And especially if you have not, if your chapter has not received funding in years past, please reach out and we can talk more about it. Oh yeah,
So Tom's question was about the public accessibility, about hosting a pollinator garden within a public university, and is that considered public accessible? And so the answer that we gave earlier, and again, it'll be on the recording, was yes, but just also maintain focus on who the target audience is for those publicly accessible gardens when put into, say, a public university space and things like that. Yeah, and so Tom, you should also hear our probably more long-winded answer on the recording.
yeah, thank you again as well to everybody who asked questions. Really do appreciate it. Every question we get is helpful in kind of how we yeah, the info that we give y'all, and we're gonna be adding some of these into the FAQ section. So yeah, thank you to everybody who joined as well. Like I said, I know it's the evening on a Wednesday and you could be doing many things, but you chose to be here, and it means a lot. So
And thank
you're
you,
getting
Krishan,
bonus
for all
points
your
for being
effort
here.
to put this together tonight. Really appreciate it.
They chose this over taxes.
Oh yeah, true. Maybe it's a
Tax day.
procrastination tactic. Easy choice indeed. And then yeah, if anybody had a question that they didn't think this was the best place to ask it, have my email, pmn pollinators for texas at ag.tamu.edu. So yeah, that's how you can reach me. And yeah, no such thing as a dumb question. So
Well, with that, Krishan, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. We're closing in on the hour mark there, and appreciate everybody's time today.